welcome to the next row. Yeah. Welcome to the next row. From the field on my way to the next row. Welcome to the next row.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Next Row Show, and I'm your host. I'm one of the best hosts in the world. There's no one like me. I'm the best.
True story. True story.
I've always been the best, okay? Let me tell you that. And you found the right place, because here we get a chance to sit down with some wonderful, amazing people. And I have a guest today. This lady here, If I had some chicken in my hand, I'd be licking my fingers right now. That's how excited I am about this conversation. Wow. AHA Healing and the world's first emotional fitness school.
Yes.
You built it.
I did.
Right here. Built it. Please welcome Janice Taylor.
Thanks, Vernon. Well, you are the best host in the entire world. You just claim it and own it, right?
That's what I'm saying, Janice. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to tell everybody. I'm trying to tell them.
It's true. It's true. You just were great at one thing. It wasn't enough, right? You had to go and be great at something else.
There we go. There we go.
Yes. Well done. Well done.
Janice, you're a 3-time tech founder, right?
I am.
What's the hardest emotional battle founders don't talk about?
You know, I jokingly say that founders are like athletes or actors, or, you go into something with all of your hopes and dreams, right? You're going to go in, and whether you're just starting out at the high school level playing sports or whatever, a founder goes into something like, I'm going to solve this problem. This is how I'm going to solve it. And this is what it's going to take. And this is how long. And so founders rush to the end. They see themselves like hoisting the exit trophy, like, oh, I exited a company. That's what a tech founder does. Where for athletes, it's like I won the cup. And the hardest thing in the entire emotional journey, I think, for athletes as well as also founders, is to fall in love with the process, not the end destination. And I think that we always go to the end. So if the end doesn't look like we think it will, we lose sight of the process of how it evolves. And I think emotionally, any performer, which a founder is a performer, just like an athlete or an actor, we fall in love with the end, not the process. And I think that's the hardest road.
You say the process, and that's interesting. You say the process, because my entire career, I always tell guys coming in behind me, and that's just my dialogue. Just the process. The process is everything. How you getting up in the morning, going into the gym, eating properly, taking care of your body, like all of that stuff. Those little things create this big outcome, and that's what I seem to forget sometimes. So you mentioned this is real. That's real.
100%. And sometimes the outcome isn't what you think it's going to be. And it's just like when you're building product, like I'm building Wilson. What I thought Wilson was in 2014, and it's been 12 years in development, to what it's shaping up yesterday, I'm like, I never saw that. So you don't even know sometimes what the outcome is, but when we've attached to an outcome and then it doesn't show up, we miss all of the other awesome around it. And so that's also part of it too, is that we set our sights on the outcome, but sometimes that outcome isn't what it is, or it doesn't happen in the time. As you know, as an athlete, right? You can play your whole career and not win. You may not see the outcome, right? So how does someone rectify that in the soul when you're looking at something? Because sometimes that outcome is just a stopping point, and there's still another mountain. But it's hard when you're in it to see that's actually happening.
Yeah, that's why we have faith, Janice, and I think people fail to get that as well. Faith is being sure what you hope for is certain of what you do not see. And if you have faith and you understand that this process that you're so passionate about is going to happen no matter what, you just got to keep faith and just go with it. Trust it.
Yeah, we like in emotional fitness, we always say the last quarter mile of the marathon of life, because when people have emotional pain as kids, and we all grow up, I grew up in trauma, lots of people have trauma or hard life. The hardest thing to connect back to, and we've noticed this, I've been studying emotional fitness for 30 years, 2,000 people, and this is people that have been grown up, with abuse. These are athletes, these are performers. It doesn't matter the group. Is what I noticed is that the hardest last quarter mile is to connect back to faith. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be religious faith. It's the fact that to know that you are loved and to just know it within your breath is the last quarter mile on a healing journey. Because once you connect to that, then everything is possible. But what happens in the child's psychology, and this is sort of where that break happens, is the fact that when that emotional pain happens, it breaks a little person's heart. They really sort of separate in two. And it's hard to rectify what they went through with also having faith. And so this is why I decided to write this theory and put this process together, because I thought, the last quarter mile is, how do you know you're connected to something bigger than yourself when you've endured all that you've endured? And that's really the last quarter mile of the marathon in emotional fitness, is like really connecting to that.
When did you realize that you could scale this? Like, I would have never thought about that. You basically scaled it through technology. How did you?
Yeah.
When did that come about?
I'm so glad you asked me that, is that I've been studying humans for 30 years, and I started to write this theory, but from my own experiences. And I thought, I cannot take two people and they're all completely different. Like, everyone has different stories, different experience, different names, different birthdays, different siblings. They have all this like packed data. And I thought, we're trying to put all these people square peg, round hole, and it doesn't fit. And in fact, if you think about how great God, the universe, however you define it is that every day we get new data. We get so much data in one day to point us in the direction of who we truly are and all the magic that's within us, that's actually impossible for a human to either see, but also for anybody that's been a therapist, etc. You can't be with someone 24/7, 7 days a week. You see them for an hour. So you're only seeing like a small microcosm of their whole day. And this is where I thought of Wilson. And literally from the movie Castaway, I was like, well, if everybody had a Wilson, we could survive a deserted island. Just, we could talk to ourselves and see and process and actually solve our own problems. But because we're wired away from who we really are, that's what technology currently does. And I needed to solve that, is that we needed to re-engineer back to who we are and know that the answer actually truly is within. But because your brain has been wired in digital as it is right now, you were wired away from faith. You were wired away from what is true about you. It's actually engineered to take you out of the self. And so I knew I needed to create a machine to fight the machine, which is why I made Wilson. And I needed to wire people back into what was true at our birth. And since you are a man of faith, we know that at our birth, everything was designed for us, from the hair on our heads to all the wonderful, intricate pieces of who we are. But when you are taken away from that, you either A, forgot, don't know, or emotional pain prevents you from actually finding out your magic. And I wanted every single human being to know that how they're uniquely created is spot on, chef's kiss perfection. And that we needed to create a machine for them to figure that out. So I did.
So basically you're saying that everything this machine does, we're the complete opposite.
Yes.
So that means, yeah, I guess in a way you're saying that our mind harbors nothing but negativity, right? Or doubt. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's not true.
And do we get that from our traumas? Do we also get that from the world, like what the world given us?
Yes, sir. Yes, Vernon, such a good question. Thank you. Is that when you have emotional pain as a child, you can kind of think of it as like a deposit. It stays in the body. And then we go into the world. And so what we think is we're living the world, but actually you're absorbing more pain, more emotional pain. And so the more you absorb that emotional pain, around 40 to 50 years old, it starts to erupt in the body. It starts to explode in some ways, like the iceberg inside of you. But you haven't been conscious of it, because emotional pain you actually absorb and you don't even know, because you put up your defenses, you put up your barriers. Now, if you take the United States as a good example, I'm Canadian, so we have a little bit of a different perspective. But if you look at what's actually happening inside of the United States, it's like lots of emotional pain, lots of explosions of that. And you have cultural traumas within the society as well. So now if you think about that, about 2010, 2012, we all went inside of digital to socialize. Social media and the machine of how we live digitally erupted. Now, that is engineered, literally hard-coded, how they actually wire the algorithms. They wire you to the lowest common denominator of yourself. It's wired to behavior condition a behavior out of yourself, which is always wired negative. Even if it looks positive, it always ends up negative, wires you away from what is true. Now, if you look at, for example, faith in different literature, like in the Bible, it says 365 times, do not fear. It says it exactly 365 times, one for each day. Yet all we do every day is fear. And we talk about the fact that fear is an illusion and love is real. But if you go into these machines, they wire you to not only predict more fear and be afraid, it also is wiring you away from what you know about yourself. And that is actually really, really difficult because it's wired in psychology, it's wired into technology. And this is why one day I sat up in 2009 and I'm living in Saskatchewan, Canada. I don't know anything about technology. And everyone says, hey, you should check out Facebook. Well, I grew up on the streets running around. My dad was an addict. So as soon as I opened up Facebook, I was like, great. So he's the drug cartel, but you're not going to see him. You're not going to think this is heroin. And I was like, this is heroin. And I quit my job, wrote Oprah, got my start at the Oprah show. And that took me on this trajectory to living in Silicon Valley. So I'm living in Silicon Valley after running around when I did. And I was like, great, these are all thieves. They're going to steal people's time, their talents, their creativity. We're all going to think we're making it, but really what we're doing is we're taking a drug. And I was like, this is not good. But no one believed me in 2012. And so I fought for children's digital rights and then went into pro sports. But, it's been a journey because it's hard for people to understand that we're taking a drug that we don't inject, that we don't swallow a pill, we don't drink. So people can't connect to the fact that this is monumentally changing our lives. I think just now we're starting to go, is this good for us? Is this really good for humanity? And I think we're starting to wake up from this storm of all of that.
And Janice, how do you balance all this information and all of these amazing opportunities and things that you're giving the people? How do you balance that with what the world is giving you?
That is such a great question, because I think this is also, I think, such the beautiful work that you do, is that I believe that every single human being is born with a calling. They are born with a calling, and they're born with a problem born to them to solve, that they have all of the ingredients within themselves in order to solve it. And that if we're going to spend our time doing anything, it should be spent on that. And so when I go into the world and I'm looking at all of this, I know what my calling is, and I know the problem born to me to solve. And oftentimes the problem born to you to solve is the one that broke your heart the most. And that's actually really kind of ironical in how I was putting this theory together on emotional fitness, was that sometimes what broke our hearts is actually what is our calling and is actually the ingredients and the recipe for us to create. So when I'm sifting through the vastness of being in technology, I'm building a small language AI technology. I'm in ethical AI. I've wrote a theory. I'm at Harvard. I've done all of these things. And for me, it always comes down to everyone has a puzzle piece within themselves that is just their puzzle to solve. And so when I look at this data, I'm always like, oh, is this the edge piece? Anybody's ever done the puzzles? And is this in the edge, or is this the corner over here? I look at every piece of data as a puzzle piece, but I also look at every human being in that way as well.
And you mentioned that the thing that breaks our heart the most, I think you said that just now. Elaborate on that. What do you mean by the things that break our heart the most?
So before your 10th birthday, you came into the world full, complete. At your birth, every baby born is perfect. They expect love. They want to be loved. They don't negotiate love. They don't say, hey, I'll get good grades. Will you love me? Oh, I'll look pretty. Will you love me? The baby's like, no, I'm here. Everybody love me. That's how babies are. That we know that in science. But something happens between your birth and your 10th birthday, and we call that the primal wound. It's the break. It's when the person actually splits in two between the false and the true self. It's a scientific scientific phenomenon that happens. And what happens at that break is that the person already starts to live from the false self, the ego, and also the true. So in essence, humans are AA batteries. You can kind of think about it, if you ever put a AA battery in the remote control the wrong way and you're like, the batteries are dead. And you're like, hold on, did I put the battery in the right way? And so you open up the remote, right? And you put it back in, and it has both energies. And if you look at a AA battery, it has a negative end charge and has a positive charge. Everything in the world has that. So I wanted to say, well, if this break, this primal wound that split us into two, was so monumental, like a crack in the manifold, like a thunderbolt, when we know all the pain, what if all the purpose is parked there at the same time? Because both charges exist. You're a AA battery. So if you're still holding on to something that broke your heart, you're also holding on to the purpose of it, that P equals P mathematically. You are literally both ends of that. So I went and I studied 2,000 people, and I looked at all of their pain points in the first 10 years of their life. And I extracted what could be all of the data that goes along with it from the purpose side of it. What is your calling? And I discovered in 2,000 cases, in 100% of cases, everyone had a calling parked there beside it. All the data around it, all of the information was the name of the book, the song title, the name of a company, what they were meant to do, what they were meant to be. It was all there. In 2,000 cases, there wasn't one where their data wasn't there at the exact same time. Now, they were telling me the stories of what broke their heart. I was looking at all the data around it. And as I extracted that data, I was like, wow, this is the picture of your real life. This is who you really are meant to be. This is what you're really meant to do. And that was a profound discovery that I had over this 30-year journey. And then I proved it. And then I thought, well, what if I made Wilson? Could Wilson give people that data back? Could it show you? Well, no, you think you need to be an accountant, but you're a musician. You think you need to work in finance, but you actually really love sports. It started to really sort of shake out what people were really meant to be and do. And that's when I knew I had to make a whole new framework. And that's why I made emotional fitness.
Yeah. Janice, do you think people understand that about themselves? Do they understand? Do they even know that?
No.
That kind of information?
No.
The time you're born all the way to 10 years old, you're like a AA battery?
Yeah, no, they don't. Vernon, this is why the show that you're doing is so important. This is such a critical moment for you and the audience that you have. And this is what broke my heart as a kid. I saw some pretty terrible, awful running around on the streets as a kid. And I was exposed to a lot. I had my first drink at 8. I was smoking cigarettes by 9. We were stealing everything just to eat. I ate moldy food if we could find it. I stole ketchup packets just because I wanted to put ketchup on things so I didn't taste the food. I saw a lot of things as a kid. And I think a lot of your audience has as well. And if you think about that, it's hard because of the magnitude of the pain of that to see that the purpose is present at the same time. It's hard to see, what do you mean my purpose was there when that shit was happening to me? Because the pain is so intense as children, because we know at that time as little people that we're here to be loved. And so when we're not, and the world kicks the shit out of us, sorry for swearing, it kicks the crap out of us. Mm-hmm. It's hard to rectify that this was all on some level towards what you were meant to do with your life. And so people run around trying to think it's something outside of the self when all they have buried in themselves is all the ingredients to bake the most amazing freaking cake. They have inside themselves to actually be all of the things they ever wanted to be and want buried within the self. And I proved it scientifically. And we were able to prove it, that there was not a case. And I had worked with women from the sex trade. I worked with people that were heroin addicts and meth addicts. I've worked with people that came out of prison. I've worked with some of the most elite athletes and actors and musicians in the world who have found, quote unquote, their calling. It didn't matter. They all were the same. And it also didn't matter the race or the religion or the culture that they were from. There was no difference in the grouping. They all had the ingredients within themselves. And so this is why I devoted my life to emotional fitness and to Wilson, because I knew that people needed to know this. They're in so much pain thinking that they're not loved, that they don't matter, they're never going to reach their dream, it's never going to happen. And that's everywhere. And so the work you're doing, Vernon, is so critical, because if they get this message out of the whole thing, like, dive in. It's like buried in you. It's like I always jokingly say, like, if you knew your people from your neighborhood growing up and you said, guess what? You buried $1 million in your backyard from where you lived before you were 10. And you buried $1 million there. And guess what? It within yourself is the map. Do you think everybody you know be running home right now and knocking on whoever's living in that backyard and saying, excuse me, I buried my treasure here. Yeah, can I dig up the backyard for the $1 million? They'd be running with a shovel. They'd be having a metal detector. They'd be like, let's go. If I know that I buried it there myself for one day when I wanted to open that wonderful pot of gold, everyone I know from when I grew up as kids, they'd be running home right now back to Saskatchewan to the farmland and digging up a field to say there's $1 million buried here. They'd want that. So that's what's happened within humans.
So now, Janice, do in order for people to be able to be the best versions of themselves and to achieve a high level of success when it comes to their mind, do they have to forgive?
A great question. So there's two parts to this, Vernon, and I'm so glad you asked about the mind. So when we experience this primal wound, we experience two emotional injuries. Those are an injury just like an Achilles. So it's a function you have as being a human, and it lives outside of the thinking portion of your brain. It lives inside of your emotional system. You can kind of think about your emotional system like how you think about the heart and the brain. They both work together, but a surgeon doesn't operate on the brain if he's a heart surgeon, and a brain surgeon doesn't operate on the heart. But when you had this primal wound that everybody has, it injured that emotional system, unbeknownst to you, unbeknownst to anyone you know. And those two injuries stay injured in a human being for 40 to 60 years, and they don't know they're injured. So they're trying to use their head for something the head cannot solve. So we shame people like, why do you keep going back to drugs and alcohol? Not a disease necessarily. It's an injury. You'd say if you had an injury Achilles when you were playing football and you told the guy, hey, tomorrow I need you to go run a marathon. Can you do that? He'd be like, no, I injured my Achilles. I can't run the marathon. But then you'd say, well, what are you going to do to heal the Achilles? You're like, well, I saw the surgeon. I had the surgery. I'm now rehabbing it. Then I can run the marathon. When you think about emotional fitness, the thing for your audience to understand is that everyone has these two emotional injuries, and I proved that they could be healed. Once they are healed, then people don't operate with just the head. They operate with both emotional system, fitness, and your mental system together. Right now, the emotional system is running at a quarter speed. So why we work with athletes is that athletes will reach a peak mentally, and they haven't tapped into the emotional system, which is above mental. It's a beyond mental. And so because they have an emotional injury, they don't even know they have another gas tank. They don't even know they have another air above. The Jordan air, when he jumps in air, that space is emotional fitness. And up until now, there's been no science for it. And I dedicated 30 years of my life to write the science for it. So forgiveness is a choice. It isn't a byproduct of emotional fitness. But when you have two emotional injuries, those injuries prevent you from reaching any pinnacle mountaintop you want to hit. So those emotional injuries prevent proper diet and exercise. Those emotional injuries are at the root cause of domestic violence. They're at the root cause of most of the addictions we see. Those emotional injuries show up in anxiety and depression. Those emotional injuries show up in infidelities. Emotional fitness, when you're looking at these two emotional injuries, the symptoms of it show up in everything. And so I said, well, if I healed these two emotional injuries, could I be set free? Could I see my life differently? And 2,000 people later and an over 90% success rate, yeah, those two emotional injuries can be healed.
That's
It's
that makes
huge.
I meet a lot of people who are going through things. They have a lot of trauma, a lot of things in their past that they haven't really dealt with, but they come to me and they say, "Hey, I do this. Now I'm doing." They create this space where they think they're creating healing, but they're not. From talking to you, it's like you think it's just here, but you forget about the emotional part of it as well.
Yes,
Um,
it's its own system, Vernon. Like when you were an athlete, and this is something really I'd love for you to tell me. Like when you were an athlete, you knew you had your physical body, right? And you knew you had your physical fitness, like how you moved, but you also had to fuel your body, right? So you had two things you had to do just for your physical. Then you had your mental brain, right? So it's like how you understand it, how you process it. Then you also had faith, right? You probably thought that in some regards you're connected to God, the universe, however it is. But then this is one area that's not discussed. People don't even know they have it. It's an emotional system. It's its own thing. It's separate to all these other things. They're all connected, but it's its own literally wiring, and it can be optimized. Now, when you were playing, if you knew that you had this emotional system separate to your mental, separate to your physical, and separate to your spiritual, would you have honed it? Would you have show me how to let me get it awesome, right? But this is what's really interesting about it. The emotional system is often unconscious. It's often subconscious. You don't even know that it's collecting pain. You don't even know that it's not running optimally. You don't even know. And that was the mind effery for me where I went, oh God, how many people don't even know? Don't even know. Don't even know. But if you knew, and if I just told you it was an injury and you don't have to relive the past and you don't even need to know what happened to you. You don't even need to go and forgive the people that did it to you. That is not a product of this. But you just had an injury. And if I said, hey, you got an emotional injury, your immediate response to me would be like, great, can I heal it? Is it done? How do I make it peak? Is that something that you would have thought about as an athlete?
No, I don't think I would have. Possibly as an athlete, I think it is all predicated on timing because a
Mm.
lot of people, you got people are so egotistic
Mm-hmm.
and they always feel like the thing that they have in front of them, whether it's whether it's a possessional thing, like it could be money, it could be their career, anything. They're just so locked in and focused on that. They forget about the thing that's driving them to be able to do that, like their
Yeah.
emotion, their mind, their mental.
Yeah.
Don't work on that stuff. So what you're creating, you're giving them a platform, an opportunity to be able to heal themselves within. And you hear it all the time, health is wealth, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge thing, and I'm glad we're having this conversation so people can understand how important it is to work
Yes.
on yourself.
Yes. And the emotional system is again it's in every single human being and it's agnostic, which means, again, it doesn't matter what happened to you. You just need to know that it's injured. So you're not going to run optimally, even if you think you are. So even if you think, I got this on lock, and even if you win, I always say eventually that little monster shows up, and it may show up post-career. Like we've seen a lot of people post-career as athletes, right? And, different people that have reached the pinnacle, then how far they fall. And I don't want to pick on Tiger at all, but, there's some really good examples. So Tiger's issues are emotional issues, actually. That's an emotional fitness issue. And it's very easy to see. It's not a mental issue. It's not even a physical issue. It's
Mhm.
actually an emotional fitness issue.
Yeah.
And so I think when people can see it as a system, they can see it separately, that it's not like woo and it's not therapy. We're not telling people to go to therapy. In fact, we don't really recommend a lot of that. We don't recommend talk therapy. There's a process to actually understanding your emotional system, no different than how you understood how your physical body worked.
That makes a lot of sense. And for those,
Mhm.
Janice, right now, for our listeners right now, those who are listening, what's the first step they should make if they want to heal themselves today, right now?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Okay, first of all, the first thing is they just need to know they have a calling, period. If you can just believe and connect to that you have a calling buried in yourself, and if you know somewhere in yourself that that's true, you need emotional fitness to get it birthed. The second thing is that emotional fitness is a system. It's not talk therapy. It's not what's wrong with you. It's a system that's in your body and you're born with it. And you have two emotional injuries. One is empathy of the self, and the other is the ability to delay gratification. Those are emotional injuries. So if you want to reach the peak of any dream and you have an injured ability to delay gratification, which means you're always susceptible to everything outside of the self, which means when you should be working on your schoolwork or your body or your game, but you're doom scrolling for 4 hours on TikTok, don't beat yourself up because that's actually an injury. But it needs to be healed in order for you to reach anything you want in your life. So those two things are the wheels that bring everything to you first. So you feel, then you think. You don't think, then feel.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel, and then you think.
I don't think a lot of people know that either.
Mm-mm. And so if it's injured, what signal is it sending you before you think it? Like it's like a clogged filter on a furnace. If you've ever like pulled out the furnace, I don't know if you have that in the United States like they do in Canada, because furnaces are everything. And you pull out the furnace and it's full of like all of the stuff it's been collecting in the air. You need to think about your emotional system that way. You got to pull it out, clean it, get it suboptimal. So when you take in feeling and it goes to the head, it's clear. When it's injured and it comes to the head, it's not clean. It's not clear. So what you think isn't necessarily true. And so that's where if you can work on the emotional system first, it makes the way clear. But if you try to do it through your stinking thinking, it gets clogged. So you feel, then you think. That's where people don't realize is that it starts as a feeling and then it becomes a thought.
Oh, that's powerful. Jan, I want to take the time right now in the middle of this conversation to say thank you for giving people, dropping gems on people, because people don't understand. This information costs thousands of dollars right here.
Yes.
People pay thousands for this kind of information, basically giving people this guidance. They're struggling right now. Look, I struggle, so I understand what it is. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety. And that's something as a young man, you don't think that you're going to struggle with that. Playing football, I got the world on my back. Nothing that can stop me. There's nothing that can take me over mentally. You don't think of that. You just think that you're Superman. You're so powerful, but then all of a sudden you run into this roadblock because you didn't do the work. You didn't do the fitness that you needed to do. And I tell a lot of people this all the time. They think they're healed, right? Don't to 40 and 50 years old and now you're taking medication because you didn't do the work. It's going to catch up with you at some point. You just don't know when it's going to happen.
Yes. And this is what's so great that you're doing this show, because within 6 months, that emotional injury is healed, period. So when you heal and just focus in on these two emotional injuries, and there's a process and we work with people, they can go to Wilson 4Q and check it out. But I want everyone to know for free, because I grew up with nothing and everyone always told us like, oh, you need all of these things to understand the body. You need a therapist to understand how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You were born this way. And when you understand this part of your body that hasn't been discussed until now, I spent 30 years dedicated to writing the science. And I jokingly say that I wanted a farmer in Saskatchewan, Canada to get off a combine and say, oh, I can get behind that. I was like, I wanted it to have no woo, no mysticism. I wanted it to be extremely grounded in the earth, so that people could apply it to themselves and to know that they have magic, and whatever they're searching for anywhere in the world, know that the pot of gold is buried within themselves. And when they do this process, it explodes. It erupts out of them. But they need to heal the two emotional injuries, because that's your radar. That is your metal detector. You'll know if the metal detector is broken, you can't find the pot of gold. So the emotional fitness is the metal detector. Those are the injuries. You can heal them. They take 6 months to heal. Doesn't matter whatever you have dealt with in your life. I've seen it all, heard it all. We've covered it off. There is nothing that you cannot overcome. And I think that is the most important thing for your audience to know. And the last quarter mile that I'll say to everyone in the marathon is to just know and feel and believe that you are connected to something bigger than yourself is the last quarter mile. Always the last quarter mile.
Nice. I love that. And Janice, if emotional, let me ask you this question. You don't have to answer if you don't know. But if emotional fitness played the game of football, what position would it play?
That's so great. So I'm going to put this to the factor of like your teammates, because you'll know this better at all. And I'm actually going to use Phil Jackson and the triangle. So triangles are actually very symbolic and factors of 3. And so when you're toxic, the worst of your triangulation comes out. That's your codependency. But if you think about a baseball game, it's actually 2 triangles on top of each other. It's a diamond, but it's 2 triangles on top of each other. And I built Wilson on the game of baseball as well. So you'll have to educate me about this. Where's your triangle of 3? So in every position on the football field, the same with baseball, same with basketball, all exist, same with hockey. There's always a factor of 3. So there's 3 positions that need each other, no matter what. So those 3 positions work together, and it's always a factor of 3. Now, this is where if you have people that are believers, I believe that God was an athlete. And I'll say this, why I think God was an athlete, because the Trinity is in all sports. So the Trinity also exists in every religion. So it exists in Christianity. It exists in the Islam faith. It's in every faith. So when I saw the game of baseball as a little girl and thought that this game was going to save my life, I saw that it was 2 triangles on top of each other. So when Phil Jackson introduced his triangle offense and his triangle defense with the Jordan years, I was like, he's using the triangle. If you look at how buildings are built, they're built with triangles. So my question to you on a football field, which 3 and it could be multiple triangles. There's 3 positions always that need each other no matter what. And so those 3, when they're emotionally fit, are unstoppable, which means they each know their role. So if we look at Jordan and Rodman and Pippen, I'm just going to use those 3 as an example. That was the perfect trinity. So if you look at the game of sport, and I am obsessed with sports, I can't stop looking at them. I look for the trinity. In the game of baseball, it's literally built on 2 triangles. So when you look at football, you tell me, because I don't know as much about American football.
I know. That's why I said you don't know much about the American game. So let me jump in and help you. To me,
okay. So what is the trinity? What's the trinity of football?
So the quarterback, right? The one who throws the ball.
Yes, I know that one.
Manning, Tom Brady, those guys. Alex Smith. So he drops back. In order for him, once he drops back, he needs protection from his offensive lineman, right?
Okay. So does he need one guy?
No.
Okay.
So once he gets that protection from his offensive lineman, then there's somebody else that the quarterback needs in order to score a touchdown, and that's the wide receiver.
Okay, so the perfect trinity in football is the protector, the quarterback, and the receiver.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So those 3 people should be emotionally the most fit in an organization.
Yes.
Because when they're the most emotionally fit, it's an energy that permeates with everyone else. Now, I'll give you another example of where the Trinity in sports went sideways. How long it took for them to win was Kobe with the Lakers. So Kobe as an entity by himself was great, but he was missing 2 parts of the triangle. So he was great, but he didn't have his direct counterparts in the other 2. So he was trying to get the triangle, and then I want to say because Shaq came, but I know he won before that. But if you look at sort of every great dynasty in sports has the Trinity present. And so it's always a factor of 3. And even when I look at I loved the New York, I love the Yankees during Derek Jeter's era. There was so many beautiful combinations of 3 on that team that was just chef's kiss. Now, if you look at other teams that didn't win, you kind of look at where they break down, and they break down in the critical crux at the center. So even in hockey right now, in our lovely Canadian sport, they're trying to find the right combination of 3 in the game of hockey, because you need a goal scorer, you need a great goalie, and you really need a good feeder, someone that's just going to feed. Now, they all matter on a team, but at the center of it is always the center of the whole building that gets built. And that is always built in a factor of 3. And the magic of emotional fitness is I can look at a game and I can see where their emotional toxicity is. And it's predictive that they won't win. But when they are actually emotionally fit, you can actually use it as a predictive science. You can literally predict outcomes.
Nice. That's amazing. And you talked about and talking about athletes, you work with some elite performers. Is there a difference between the mind of an elite performer versus the next performer who might not be elite? What's the difference between the people
It's such a good question, because no matter who they are, is that when you are in your optimal emotional fitness, you know exactly the role that you're in is the one you were born to be in. So optimally emotional fitness isn't looking at this other person wishing you were them. It's knowing that who you are and exactly who you are is the perfect combination. That's someone who's emotionally fit. People that don't have emotional fitness always look outside of themselves and wish they were something else. So the truly great performers, doesn't matter if they're athletes, they know exactly that that's who they are. So I use Rodman as a great example, even though he did all the things. But why I use him as an example is because he knew exactly his role. Like, he knew exactly what he was there to do. He knew exactly that he was going to be great at it. So when you hear him talk about being a rebounder, he's like, I perfected the art of it. I knew by the spin and where it went off the backboard, he perfected his art. Now, Jordan got all the love, but Rodman knew in his max emotional fitness of his performance, he perfected the role that he was in. And he did not want to be Jordan. He wanted to be the best damn version of Rodman, which included all of the other stuff. But if we just look at his performance, and he spoke about it like a scientist, and he spoke about how he rebounded and where he could predict it, he thought, I'm not going to be Jordan. I'm going to be this guy. And so the truly great teams have guys that are in roles that are not Brady, but they know exactly. And Gronk, great example. Great example. Gronk knows Gronk.
So you do know football, Janice. You know football.
No, I know of it.
You
So
got a little
Gronk
bit of
knows,
American in you. There you go.
yeah, just a tiny bit. But that's a very perfect example where Gronk, and it made Brady very comfortable because Gronk embraced his role. So what it does when someone has just fully embraced that role that they're playing, and they're going to be the best freaking people at it, is that it creates an emotional frequency of calm. So what happens when you go to perform, because emotional pain is absorption, you absorb people's anxiety around you. You don't know you're doing it, but you're doing it. And if you even know subtly that if someone of your teammates aren't quite with you on their role, and you may be better, like you may get more hype, you may be better at the position, you may be someone who's getting more money, and you're looking at that guy going, gosh, I wish I was him, I wish I was him, I wish I was him. Unconsciously. That's an energy that they feel. And that's an energy vice versa, and it's called isolated greatness. So those people that are told as kids that they're great, they're great, they're great, they're great, what they don't have and why they can be alone and not win when they need to be in a team is they don't give love to the roles that are around them that are going to make them great as well, because they have isolated greatness. So they're emotionally underdeveloped.
No, that's powerful. That's powerful. And we're at that hour and we're at the time. And I know we got to get you out of here. And I'm so sorry.
Okay, I know. No, I could talk about
I
sports.
just had a vision of you and I with our blankets, and you and your camera, you over there, and I'm over here, and I got my blanket. I don't know, I'm brushing my teeth, and we're still talking. It's just, we could talk for days and hours. It's crazy.
We could talk for days.
Let me do this with you real quick, Jess. Just tell me quickly.
Yep.
Next for you and Wilson 4Q.
So Wilson 4Q, we're going to launch the Athlete Optimized Collective, which I'm very excited about. The AOC, which is we're taking 5 athletes from 4 sports plus NCAA and military. We're bringing them together with Wilson and the best in wellness to study them after sports, life after sports. So if you got any athletes out there that want to be part of that collective, we're going to be utilizing the magic of Wilson, which is looking at all of your data, all of that magic, emptying your container out so you can see your magic and your gold, and introducing to you to the best in digital, in technical, in biohacking, all things health and wellness. And we're going to be studying you for 12 months. So if you have any athletes that are listening to this, we would love to have you be part of that 30 study. It's 30-person study. And there's a bit of a competition because we keep scores. And so, of course, we want to see if the NFL guys are better than the military guys or the military guys better than the baseball guys. And we're bringing you group together to really look at how we can also discover your next act. So they can head to Wilson 4Q. They can email me directly if you have athletes in your world that you think would like to be part of the collective. There's compensation and also monetization for them as well as part of it. So it's a cool thing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Now, as we end this, Janice, I'm gonna end on rapid fire, and I want to see what you come up with. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Let me see what you come up with. You ready?
Okay. Ready.
Energy drink or coffee?
Coffee.
Action movies or romantic comedies?
Ooh, romantic
I
comedies.
knew you would say that. I knew. What's your biggest guilty pleasure? A cupcake
Mc
or ice cream?
McDonald's.
Oh, okay. There we go. Who has strong emotional fitness? Football players or NASCAR drivers?
Ooh, football players.
Okay. What would you choose? Meditation in an isolated cabin in the woods or being on a secluded island?
Secluded island.
Ah, okay. Nice. I didn't think you would say that one, but you got me. You got me. Janice, we appreciate you for coming on Next Roll. You've been amazing. I'm sure my listeners are going to get a lot out of this. This is something that needs to be talked about all the time. I feel like I should just create a platform just for this. You know what I mean? Because this is very powerful. I mean, you even gave me some information that I didn't know. So I appreciate you for coming on, and we look forward to having you again.
Thank you, Vernon. You are a gift to the world because through your platform, you get to introduce these new concepts that really help people in their life. And what greater gift? What greater gift?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to the next row.